Because as far as I was concerned, from what I'd been taught, again, the church went through the end of the book of Acts, and then it apostatized. And then Martin Luther brought it back. But we weren't even Lutherans. You know, we didn't think the Lutherans even had it right. You know, so we hailed Martin Luther as a hero of sorts, but not his doctrine, because we didn't baptize babies, you know, all of that. We weren't Lutherans. But okay, he did a good thing. He broke from the church. I didn't know all that other stuff. And I considered myself pretty well educated. I have a minor in biblical studies. I've been reading the Bible all my life. I knew the Bible really well. I knew some of Reformation history. But when I began to read church history, all these people I'd never heard of. And I remember, it's like meeting old friends. And Clement and Ignatius and Ambrose. I mean, names I had never heard.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
There was 1,500 years up until the Reformation. And if you ask an average Christian, can you name a Christian that lived in the 900s?
No.
The 800s,
No.
the 700s, the 11th century, 12th.
No.
You can't.
No.
As if for all those centuries we were void of anyone. Well, if we were void for those centuries of anyone knowing the gospel, how do we ever get it?
That's right.
In 1500s. And, you know, what a humbling, a confronting discovery it is.
Right.
We realize how ignorant we were.
Well, and when you read the church fathers, when you read church history, when you read their writings, the thought dawned on me, truth doesn't change. So the truths of the Christian faith are not going to change. They're not going to change. And when I found out how Catholic these guys were, it was pretty alarming. You know, the real presence of Christ.
No, you were in the midst of this, as you were confronted with these things challenging you, which were knocking out the, let's say, the foundation of your own brand of Protestantism. You were also discovering some of the really truths of this Catholic faith, such as the issues of God's grace, or the sacraments. When did you start kind of accepting the validity, the beauty of the grace that comes to us in the sacraments?
The first sacrament that grabbed me, and now you remember that we come from a tradition that doesn't use even that word sacrament. Right. Okay, baptism was a symbol of the inner cleansing that had happened. It was a public statement. I was doing some reading on evangelism in the early church. And I was reading from Eusebius, and it was an instruction on baptism, and it said running water, clean running water, and how to do it. And it said, and children who are not old enough to go in by themselves may be carried in the arms of their parents. And I said, we have been missing out here. You know, of course it's for everybody, and yes, it counts. It does something. And at that point I thought, I'm not sure what it does, but it's so important that nobody was a Christian without it. And some of those people waited years to be baptized. They waited and they waited and they reformed their lives, and they said, I want to be a Christian so bad. I want to go in that water, and when I come out, I'm a new man in Christ. And I thought, that's the way it was back then. What happened? What happened to baptism? Well, you know, once you start reading, it's a lost cause.
All